traffic on Austin, but this was in Williamson County. So
No blame, no problem. Ready to roll.
all right, good morning. Meeting's called to order. Mr. Trowman, has anyone signed up for public comment? Thank you very much. Good morning, Ms. Miller.
Good morning, sir.
How are we this morning?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, I'm better now after an hour and 15 minutes of a commute. I'm glad to be somewhere.
I'm glad you're here, sir.
This is a good place to be. No cases to reconsider under agenda item 3, is that correct?
Correct, no cases.
Well, how about tax liability cases under agenda item 4?
We do have 2 of those on docket 50. The first is case number TD-21-033-0, 1021. So the last 4 digits, 1021. Commissioner Demerson
I agree with staff recommendation.
and Commissioner Alvarez
I agree with staff's recommendation.
and Mr. Chairman.
Agree with staff recommendation.
And the second case is TD-21-034-1021. Commissioner Demerson,
Agree with staff recommendation.
Commissioner Alvarez,
I as well agree with staff recommendation.
and Mr. Chairman.
Agree with staff recommendation.
Thank you.
No fair housing cases on agenda item 5,
Correct.
about agenda item 6.
Nothing on agenda item 6, except for, actually, there are cases to be voted. You should have a short form dissent list for the wage claim cases on docket 50.
Yeah, I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining wage claim cases on docket 50.
I second the motion except for those cases of which I'm dissenting as reflected on the wage claim short form dissent list for docket 50.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I'm dissenting as reflected in the wage claim short form dissent list for docket 50.
I move, oh, see, the motion passes with the exceptions that are noted. Now let's move to agenda item 7, consideration of unemployment insurance cases on docket 50. Please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you.
Case number 2626622, Commissioner Demerson.
We should grant a rehearing in this case. First, I agree that the employer had good cause for its non-appearance. Regarding the job separation, I acknowledge that the employer's witness did not provide useful information about the final incident that led to the claimant's discharge. The employer explained in fact-finding statements that the details of the claimant's discharge were under legal review and could not be divulged. However, in its appeal to the commission, the employer has now provided documentary evidence detailing the final incident. Before rendering our decision in this case, we should rehear for submission and review of this evidence and to further develop the record regarding the final incident leading to the job separation.
The decision is supportable. The employer provided no testimony regarding any specific act of wrongdoing on the claimant's part, nor any specific violation of a rule or policy. Therefore, the employer did not meet its burden of proof that the claimant was discharged for misconduct connected with the work. Affirm, good cause, no misconduct, chargeback.
Rehear.
We will rehear the case.
Case number 2696212, Commissioner Demerson.
We should modify the AT decision. First, I do not contest the good cause issue. Concerning the job separation, the claimant was offered a full-time position on the date that the claimant contract ended with the employer. The new position entailed job responsibilities akin to his contract job with the employer. Although the claimant in his testimony alleged that he was not offered the role of a full-time algebra teacher, this testimony is not credible. In his fact-finding statements to the commission provided closer in time to the job separation, the claimant asserted that he was offered the job as a teacher, but refused the position because it was not the job he was seeking. Since the preponderance of the evidence suggests that continued work was available, the claimant's failure to accept continued employment constituted a voluntary quit without good cause connected with the work. Hence, we should modify the AT decision. The claimant had good cause for missing the AT1 hearing, voluntary leaving, reimbursing employer, not bill, adequate employer response.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The claimant provided credible testimony that he did not receive the notice for the initial AT hearing in a timely manner, and his testimony was consistent with the information in his petition to reopen. The claimant was separated when his employment contract expired at the end of the school year, and he was no longer receiving wages. The claimant received no offer to continue employment until several months later, well after the claimant had already been separated. Further, the offer was informal and lacking in specific details and was never reduced to writing. As the claimant was effectively laid off when his contract expired at the end of the school year, the AT properly concluded that the claimant was discharged for reasons other than misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, good cause, no misconduct, bill reimbursing employer.
Modify the AT, claim establish good cause for AT1, voluntary leaving, reimbursing employer not billed, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2707529, Commissioner Alvarez.
Although the claimant's appeal indicated that he traveled out of town for some period, he returned home before the appeal deadline. The claimant has alleged delayed delivery of the AT decision. Accordingly, a rehearing should be granted to consider the timeliness of the claimant's appeal.
We should dismiss the claimant's appeal as late. The claimant's appeal was filed 2 days late. The claimant states that she was out of state in this delayed receipt of her mail. However, there is no good cause exception to the timeliness rules. Thus, her appeal was not timely, and we do not have jurisdiction to consider the underlying merits. Accordingly, we should dismiss the claimant's appeal to the commission and leave the underlying AT decision in full force and effect.
Can you read back to me Commissioner Alvarez's
And
vote?
Commissioner Alvarez voted to rehear on timeliness.
Rehear.
We will rehear the case.
Case number 2724951, Commissioner Alvarez.
The claimant attempted on multiple occasions to call TWC to file his initial claim after he was laid off in mid-April 2020, but was mostly unable to get through to speak with the representative. This occurred in the early months of the pandemic, when the agency's phone lines and electronic systems were overwhelmed. Therefore, the claimant established adequate cause to backdate the initial claim to April 12, 2020. Reverse AT backdating granted to April 12, 2020.
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision. The claimant filed his claim outside of the period that TWC was automatically backdating claims. Although the claimant alleges that he attempted to file his claim shortly after the job separation, phone records submitted with his appeal indicate that he began calling the 800 numbers beginning on June 30th, 2020. Assuming these phone calls were to TWC, we could modify the AT decision and backdate his claim to June 28th, 2020. In the alternative, I would agree to rehear this case to allow the claimant to submit legible copies of his phone records and to further develop the record about his attempts to file his claim.
Reverse the AT, backdate initial claim to April 12, 2020.
Short form dissent.
I have your short form dissent, sir.
Case number 2802186, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision regarding the backdating of the claim is not supportable. The claimant has provided emails showing she had filed a claim in Tennessee and was protesting the wages reported in that state. Tennessee does not instruct the claimant to file elsewhere until March 18, 2021. Further, the claimant has indicated she attempted to contact TWC prior to the filing of her claim, but was unable to receive assistance and was provided with misinformation. Modify the AT backdating granted to February 21st, 2021, sever voluntary leaving.
We should modify the appeal tribunal decision. The claimant filed her initial claim in Texas in March 2021. Although she alleges that she filed in Tennessee in February 2021. The claimant has provided no specific facts or documentary evidence to corroborate this claim. Thus, we should modify the AT decision, deny the claimant's request to backdate, sever the job separation issue.
Modify the AT, backdate initial claim to February 21st, 2021, sever the separation issue.
What was the chairman's vote? And Commissioner Alvarez?
I show the majority vote is granting the backdate request to February 21st, 2021.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Case number 2804587, Commissioner Emerson.
The appeal tribunal decision should be reversed on timeliness. The employer stated in its appeal that its operations were disrupted due to COVID, which included disrupted access to U.S. mail and documents at the employer's building. Moreover, in its appeal to the commission, the employer states that it was basing its action plan on guidance from local officials who had advised residents to avoid leaving home except for essential needs. As such, we should find the employer's appeal timely and remand the case for merits testimony. In the alternative, the case should be remanded to the appeal tribunal for testimony from the employer on timeliness. In light of the employer's appeal that has been previously mentioned, which also includes information suggesting that it received the determination by U.S. mail as opposed to e-correspondence, the case should be remanded to explore whether the employer received the determination at its e-correspondence inbox.
The decision is correct. The employer's appeal was 7 days late, and there are no good cause exceptions to the timeliness rules. Although the employer cites the COVID-19 pandemic as a reason for its late appeal, the determination was delivered to the employer electronically, so there was no issue of any delays involving postal delivery. Accordingly, the appeal was properly dismissed on the timeliness grounds. Affirm the AT late employer appeal, no misconduct, bill employer.
Reverse the AT, timely employer appeal, remand.
Short form dissent.
Thank you, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2817507, Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision should be reversed. During the week of February 14, 2021, Texas suffered a catastrophic freeze that resulted in widespread closures. The claimant was unable to go to work in that week because her office was closed. She did not file for UI benefits until the following week because of the circumstances and due to the lack of certainty as that week transpired. The claimant's additional claim should be backdated to the week in which she was unemployed. Reverse the AT, backdate the additional claim to February 14, 2021.
The appeal tribunal decision should be affirmed. The claimant did not file her claim during the week she was unemployed due to personal reasons. The latter reasons did not constitute adequate cause for backdating the claimant's claim. As such, we should affirm the AT decision, deny the request to backdate.
Reverse the AT, backdate the additional claim to February 14, 2021.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Demerson.
Case number 2835787, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision is not supportable. The claimant was assaulted by a customer while working. The customer attempted to follow the employer's policies and avoid the individual. After clocking out, the claimant attempted to leave the location and report the incident to the police. The customer attempted to hit the claimant with his car and then began punching the claimant. In an attempt to defend himself, the claimant fought back. No evidence has been presented to establish the claimant in any way provoked at the individual. The claimant engaging in self-defense was not misconduct. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
We should affirm the AT decision. The employer's policy strictly prohibited violence at the workplace. The claimant was discharged for entering into a physical altercation with the employer's customer. Although the claimant alleged that he had clocked out before engaging in the fight, the initial altercation transpired when he was inside the employer's premises and while he was still clocked in. Since the record indicates that the altercation outside the store was sufficiently connected with the work, and because the evidence suggests that the claimant was aware of the employer's policy against fighting at the workplace, the claimant's conduct constituted misconduct connected with the work. Hence, we should affirm the AT decision. Misconduct, no chargeback.
Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Demerson.
Case number 2857947, Commissioner Alvarez.
The case should be remanded. The hearing officer failed to ask the claimant why he filed a late appeal. The hearing officer failed to perform to the minimum standards and created a due process issue. As we aim to improve our customer service, we need to ensure that hearings are held in a consistent and high quality manner. Remand to the AT to develop the record on the timeliness issue.
I agree. We should remand this case back to the appeal tribunal so that the claimant can be asked directly why he filed his appeal late. Remand.
Remand.
We will remand the case.
Case number 2859475, Commissioner Demerson.
The employer filed a timely motion for rehearing, alleging that it has an audio recording concerning the claimant's other employment that was going on at the time of her initial claim and is continuing through the present time. Since such employment would raise important issues concerning whether the claimant named the correct last employing unit on her initial claim and whether she has reported all work and earnings while filing weekly claims, it would be appropriate to hold a rehearing to allow the audio recording into evidence and to allow both parties an opportunity to address those issues. Accordingly, we should grant the MR hold a rehearing to accept the audio recording into evidence and take testimony from both parties regarding the claimant's possible other employment at the time of filing her initial claim and while filing weekly claims.
Although the employer contends that it has a tape recording of a conversation regarding the claimant having worked for another employer, the employer did not offer any explanation for not having offered this recording earlier. Furthermore, the claimant acknowledged at the AT hearing having had a second job. Such information is not relevant or material to the claimant's separation from the named employer and would not change the outcome of the case. The employer's contention that the claimant lacks sufficient base period wage credits to qualify for benefits is without merit. Accordingly, the MR should be denied.
Deny the motion for rehearing.
Maintain my dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner
Okay.
Demerson.
Case number 2862310, Commissioner Demerson.
This case needs modification, but not in the form of a reversal. A rehearing would be appropriate. An employer first-hand witness testified that at the end of the meeting, the claimant stated that she was quitting. An additional employer statement in file documents, presumably from the same meeting, corroborates the employer's witness testimony. The employer also provided assurances to the claimant that it was addressing all of her concerns. None of the employer's efforts were good enough for the claimant, who insisted via email that she could not return to the workplace until she felt her complaints were fully resolved. The claimant did not establish that working conditions were intolerable, and as a result, her decision to leave the workplace constituted a voluntary quit without work-connected good cause. However, before we decide this case, we should conduct a rehearing to allow the claimant to provide her witnesses that were not allowed to testify at the appeal hearing.
The AT decision is not supportable. The claimant clearly notified the employer of her absences and gave a compelling reason, indicating she would return to work upon receiving assurances from the employer that it would investigate her reasonable safety concerns. As the employer did not respond or give any clear indication that he did not approve of her absence or that her job was in jeopardy, the claimant reasonably believed that the employer did not object to her absence. Under these circumstances, the claimant's absence, with proper notice and a legitimate reason, did not constitute a mismanagement of her position of employment. Reverse AT, no misconduct, chargeback, no overpayment.
Remand to cure any potential due process issues by allowing the claimant's witnesses to testify.
We haven't received a majority vote yet because Commissioner Demerson voted to rehear, which is at the Commission Appeals level. And Mr. Chairman, you voted to remand, which is at the Appeal Tribunal level.
I agree with the chairman. Remand. It's
Majority
fine.
vote is to remand to the
All right.
Appeal Tribunal. Did you wish to short form dissent the remand?
Yes, ma'am. Short form dissent.
Yes, sir.
Case number 2870687, Commissioner Demerson.
The commission should grant a rehearing in this case. In its appeal to the commission, the employer is offering to present 3 witnesses to the commission. The witnesses named by the employer either directly dealt with the claimant during the final incident or took part in the job separation. As such, their testimony is critical to a proper disposition of this case. We should therefore rehear this case for testimony from the employer's witnesses.
The decision is correct. The claimant and a third-party firsthand witness have provided the best evidence in this case. The claimant was discharged for responding with a disagreement after a supervisor approached her in an aggressive manner and used profanity. In accordance with the commission precedent, the claimant's response was justified as it was provoked by the employer. Affirm the AT, no misconduct.
Rehear.
We will rehear the case.
Case number 2913806, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision is not supportable. The claimant was partially unemployed. She quit her job to accept work that paid a higher wage. The claimant is clearly qualified for benefits under section 207.045G of the Act. Reverse the AT, no voluntary leaving.
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision. The claimant quit her part-time position to accept another part-time position with the employer. The claimant predicted that she could move to a full-time position sooner with the new job. Since the claimant quit to pursue another job, her separation was voluntary and without good cause connected with the work. In addition, the claimant does not fall under the protection of section 207.045G. The claimant was making less than $15 per hour at her old job, working 29 hours per week. At her new job, the claimant was working less than full-time, making $18 per hour. Since the claimant did not present evidence that she would be working more hours, less hours, or about the same number of hours, it was unreasonable for the claimant to believe that her wages would be increased at her new job. As such, we should affirm the appeal tribunal decision, voluntary leaving.
Reverse the 18, no voluntary leaving.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Dimerson.
Ms. Miller, can I interrupt? I apologize. If we could go back to a previous case, I'd like to change my vote. If we could go back to case 2862310, 2862310.
Okay, that's the 11th case in our sequence.
That's correct. I'd like to change my vote from short form to agree with the commissioner and chairman to remand as well.
We have a unanimous decision to remand.
Thank you.
Returning to sequence would be case number 14.
Case number 2937272, Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision is not supportable based on the developed record. Almost no testimony was taken on the timeliness issue, and the claimant credibly contended that the hearing officer would not allow her to speak in the hearing. Because the record did not adequately develop and the claimant was not allowed to present her case, the case should be remanded so that the record on the timeliness issue can be fully developed.
Let me make sure the right case is 2937272.
Correct.
Okay, good. The appeal tribunal decision should be affirmed. The claimant filed her appeals beyond the applicable deadlines to be considered timely. As such, we do not have jurisdiction over the underlying merits, and the claimant's appeal should be dismissed as late. We should therefore affirm the AT decision, untimely claimant appeal, earnings adjustment of $1,045, earnings adjustment of $2,717, and an overpayment of $1,130.
Affirm the AT, untimely claimant appeal, leave the underlying determinations in full force and effect.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2937872, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be affirmed. Regarding the timeliness issue, the employer testified that their fax appeal never went through before the appeal deadline. An appeal was not received from the employer during the appeal period. Therefore, the appeal should be dismissed as late. Affirm the AT late employer appeal, no misconduct, chargeback. In the alternative, if the employer's appeal is found timely, the claimant should remain qualified for benefits. The claimant testified that he asked about repairing the AC in his work truck, but never refused to work a shift. The claimant's testimony is consistent with his pre-hearing statements. As both parties presented a single firsthand witness, the employer has not carried its burden of showing misconduct. Modify the AT timely appeal, no misconduct, chargeback.
The appeal tribunal decision should be reversed in its entirety. The employer's attempts to submit a timely appeal were ultimately thwarted by TWC fax machines that were bogged down. The employer submitted documentation of its attempts to appeal timely and should not be penalized for TWC fax machine overload. Regarding the job separation, the preponderance of the credible evidence establishes that the claimant was terminated for refusing to work. The claimant's refusal to perform work when asked was mismanagement of his position of employment, which amounted to work-connected misconduct. We should therefore reverse the AT decision, timely employer appeal, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Reverse the AT, timely employer appeal, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response. This is the second time recently we've had this issue about the fax machines. I'd like a briefing to my office on whether our fax machines are operating appropriately and what measures we're taking to mitigate this issue moving forward.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Miller, can I take a break real quick to consult with counsel real quick on this case?
Of course.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. I would also agree with Chairman on the following up, also a briefing on the fax machine. With that said, I will short form this case.
I have your short form dissent, sir,
Thank you.
and we will prepare that briefing.
Chair, that same briefing, we'd like to receive that information as well.
Yes, sir, for
Thank
all
you.
the officers.
Thank you, Chairman, for that.
Case number 2963962, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be modified. No misconduct, no chargeback, disaster. The claimant was separated when she needed to quarantine because a member of her household tested positive for COVID-19. Therefore, the claimant was separated due to a disaster. Modify the AT, no misconduct, no chargeback, disaster.
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision. The employer advised the claimant to quarantine after she was exposed to COVID-19. Although the claimant expressed her intent to look for other jobs during the time of quarantine, the employer's statements dictated that the claimant had continued work that was available. The claimant did not attempt to clarify her job status prior to separation, nor express her intent to keep her job. As such, the claimant's separation constituted voluntary quit without good cause connected with the work. Hence, we should affirm the AT decision. Voluntary leaving, no chargeback.
Turn that microphone on. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Is that a disaster impacted vote, sir?
Nope.
Okay, no misconduct, chargeback.
Mhm.
Short form dissent.
Well, we don't have majority, or at least a normal majority. You and the chairman agreed to grant benefits to the claimant, but you've disagreed on the chargeback issue.
Ms. Miller, I would agree with the Chairman on this case.
Thank you.
Member short form dissent.
Yes, sir.
Case number 2964580, Commissioner Demerson.
We should modify the AT decision. First, I agree that the claimant filed a valid initial claim. Concerning the final incident, the claimant suffered from a stomach virus, which resulted in her missing work. The claimant's medical condition prevented her from reporting to work, which eventually led to her separation. Since the available evidence supports a finding that the claimant's separation was a result of a medically verifiable illness, we should modify the AT decision. Valid initial claim, no misconduct, no chargeback, MVI, void adequate employer response.
I would agree with Commissioner Demerson on the MBI.
Modify the AT, valid claim, no misconduct, chargeback, void adequate response.
Again, we have a majority vote on the separation. And actually, we do have a majority vote on the chargeback issue because Commissioner Alvarez agreed with Commissioner Demerson. So the majority vote that I have is no misconduct, no chargeback, MVI, valid claim, void adequate response. So you're the only vote that differs on the chargeback issue, sir.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir.
Case number 2965068, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision is not supportable. The claimant worked with the employer as a remote employee due to the pandemic. During her employment, she moved to Arizona. As it was permitted to work from home, she continued to work for the employer as a remote employee without issue. When the employer decided to call everyone back to Dallas, the claimant requested to continue working remotely, which she was denied. The claimant was getting married to an individual in Arizona and permanently going to stay with him there. The claimant's separation was a result of her move to be with her spouse in an area where her work was no longer going to continue. Reverse the AT, spousal leaving 6 weeks disqualification.
We should affirm the AT decision. The employer provided sworn testimony that the claimant's job was not solely a remote position. Due to COVID-19, the employer allowed the claimant to work remotely for a temporary period of time. The claimant quit when she was advised to return to the employer's physical office for work. Since the claimant's job was never intended to be fully remote, the claimant quitting her job based on her inability to work at the employer's physical location constituted a voluntary quit without good cause connected with the work. Hence, we should affirm the AT decision, voluntary leaving.
Are you here to clear up discrepancies in the claimant's testimony, including the wedding date?
I would agree with Chairman.
We will rehear the case.
Case number 2967184, Commissioner Demerson.
We should reverse the appeal tribunal decision on timeliness. The employer has consistently held that it did not receive the determination in question. Because the employer has provided consistent, credible, and persuasive testimony of non-receipt, we should find the employer's appeal timely and resubmit the case for merits testimony.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The employer filed an appeal more than 4 months late. The determination on appeal was mailed to the employer's correct address in commission records, and there is no indication that it was returned by the U.S. mail. The employer argues that this determination, along with 11 other pieces of correspondence from the commission related to other claims, were not delivered to the employer. It is unconvincing that all these documents were lost in the mail when they were mailed on different dates to the same address, and the employer testified to receiving numerous other TWC mailings at the same address during the same time period. The employer failed to establish non-receipt of the determination by credible or persuasive evidence. Affirm the AT, late employer appeal, no misconduct, chargeback.
Reverse the AT, timely employer appeal, resubmit.
We will resubmit the case.
Case number 2967518, Commissioner Demerson.
The appeal tribunal decision should be modified. First, the employer should be designated as a party of interest. As to the job separation, the claimant resigned due to dissatisfaction with his job. However, the claimant did not sufficiently escalate his concerns by failing to report his issues to the employer's HR department. Indeed, the employer stated that the first time HR became aware of the claimant's complaint of alleged harassment was the day he quit. As such, the claimant failed to allow the employer an adequate opportunity to remedy his concerns. Moreover, to the extent that the claimant did not make the employer aware of his concerns, he did not establish that such concerns constituted intolerable working conditions. In all, the claimant did not meet his burden to establish he had good cause connected with the work for quitting. As such, we should modify the AT decision, voluntary leaving, designate the employer as a party of interest.
The AT decision is supportable. The claimant was harassed by a coworker, provided insufficient training or support in his job, and frequently not able to take a lunch due to the work requirements. The claimant repeatedly voiced complaints to a supervisor, but she just told the claimant she could not help him and suggested that the claimant meet his harasser one-on-one. The claimant had good cause connected with the work to quit since the employer failed to make reasonable efforts to resolve the claimant's problems, despite receiving adequate notice of their existence. Affirm the AT, no voluntary leaving, employer is a party of interest.
Affirm the AT, no voluntary leaving, employer is party of interest.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Demerson.
Case number 2975472, Commissioner Alvarez.
The case should be reheard. The claimant indicated that he has a hearing impairment that affected his ability to participate in the hearing. As such, we should rehear the case with any needed accommodations to ensure the claimant is able to fully participate.
We should modify the AT decision. The employer's policy prohibited profanity and disrespectful conduct at the workplace. On or about the date of separation, the claimant became irate when the supervisor asked him to perform a task. The claimant, in lieu of complying with the supervisor's request, proceeded to yell and use profanity against the employer. The claimant, in addition to acknowledging that he had used profanity on the date in question, had furthermore signed the employer's yearly evaluation, which acknowledged the employer's policies. Since the record dictates that the claimant was aware of the employer's policy on proper workforce conduct, the claimant's use of profanity constituted misconduct connected with the work. Hence, we should modify the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, sever the adequate employer response.
Rehear.
We will rehear the case.
Case number 2976876, Commissioner Demerson.
We should reverse the appeal tribunal decision. The employer did not usually have work for the claimant from April through September because the claimant worked during the employer's busy tax season, which as we all know, ends in the middle of April. However, this does not change the fact that the claimant quit his employment on March 4th, 2020 for another job. The employer testified to this and repeated this in his employer's appeal to the commission. Had the claimant not quit the first week of March, presumably he could have continued working until the end of the tax season. Thus, because the claimant quit for a personal reason while work was still available, the employer should not be charged. We should reverse the AT decision, no chargeback.
The decision should be affirmed. The employer testified that continuing work was not available to the claimant because the employer only needed him for tax season. As such, the employer should be charged. Affirm the AT, chargeback.
Reverse the AT, no chargeback.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2983070, Commissioner Demerson.
We should reverse the appeal tribunal decision. Based on delayed receipt of the hearing packet, the employer's witness was ill-prepared to effectively participate in the hearing. In its appeal to the commission, the employer has offered evidence that the job separation occurred when the claimant quit to go to school. Because this is a personal reason for quitting, the employer should not be billed. Accordingly, we should reverse the AT decision, reimbursing the employer not billed. In the alternative, we could rehear this case to allow the employer an opportunity to provide evidence about the claimant's job separation that it was unable to provide at the first hearing due to a delayed receipt of the hearing packet.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The employer failed to provide to the commission any information regarding the claimant's work separation either before or during the AT hearing. The employer gave its witness notice of hearing on the day before it was scheduled, thereby leaving her unprepared to provide even basic information. Given the lack of evidence from the employer as to the claimant's separation, the AT decision to bill the employer's account should be affirmed.
Rehear.
And we will rehear the case.
Case number 2988612, Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision is not supportable. The claimant was discharged for an alleged dress code violation. Some unknown person supposedly observed the claimant out of dress code compliance on February 11th of 2021. It has not been stated by the employer how exactly she violated the dress code on that incident. It took the employer 3 months to actually provide notice to the claimant of her alleged violation. It then took another 3 months to actually discharge the claimant. The notice of violation had no specific information about the claimant's alleged violation. To this day, the claimant and the commission do not know how the claimant violated dress code on the final incident. The employer has failed to provide credible evidence to establish misconduct connected with the work by the claimant. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback, employer is a party of interest.
We should affirm the AT decision. The claimant was discharged for violating the employer's policy on appearance and uniform standards. The claimant had acknowledged the employer's policy and was on a final warning with the employer for non-compliance. Although the claimant was informed about a notice of investigatory meeting prior to termination, the claimant failed to partake in the meeting to address any of her concerns. Since the claimant was aware and was previously warned about her non-compliance, the claimant's refusal to abide by the terms of the employer's policy constituted misconduct connected with the work. Hence, we should affirm the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, designate the employer as a party of interest. In addition, I agree we should send a memo to UIA and OS to investigate whether the claimant properly reported her earnings on her claim certifications.
Affirm the AT, misconduct, no chargeback, employer's party of interest, memo to investigate unreported earnings.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez. And that was the last pulled unemployment insurance case on docket 50. You should have received the UI short form dissent list for docket 50.
I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining UI cases on docket 50.
I second the motion except for those cases of which I'm dissenting as reflected on UI short form dissent list for docket 50.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I'm dissenting as reflected in the UI short form dissent list for docket 50.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other order of business come before the commission?
None here, Chairman.
None here.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Chairman, I move that we adjourn.
Second motion.
Then moved and seconded to adjourn. And
I
we're-
just wanted to wish the chairman's happy holiday and all the commissioners. Ms. Gonzalez will be assisting you at the next docket meeting. So happy holidays, gentlemen.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Chair.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you too. There's a motion to adjourn. It has a second. And we're adjourned.